When Craig Dubitsky looks at an industry, he sees what's there and what's not. The entrepreneur behind breakthrough brands like Method, EOS, and Hello is now looking to disrupt the coffee industry behind a new brand called Happy, which he co-founded with actor Robert Downey Jr. Happy's line includes ground and whole bean coffee, instant coffee, and K-cup pods, and comes packaged in space-like cubes. The brand was designed to make an emotional appeal to customers who until now heard from coffee brands that were too flowery, too macho, or simply too boring. None of them have focused on the emotional benefits of coffee, said Dubitsky, speaking on the Marketer's Brief podcast, our weekly discussion of marketing news and trends that have the industry buzzing. In our conversation, Dubitsky recounts how he connected with a Hollywood superstar, shares his experience as an executive at Colgate, and talks about how Happy is backing up its marketing message with a unique commitment to mental health charities. I'm John Springer, senior reporter at Ad Age, and this is the Marketer's Brief podcast. Craig Dubitsky, welcome to the Marketer's Brief podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, thanks for coming. Before we get to your newest venture, I hope you can kind of help us catch up on where you've been. I know you've been with Method, Hello, for a time you were with Popcorn Indiana. I guess my question, though, is where did your thirst for entrepreneurism come from?
People say entrepreneurs are born, they're not made, all that kind of stuff. I have no idea how or where or why entrepreneurs spring forth. But I can tell you, for me, I did come out this way. And I was a little kid with a lemonade stand in suburban New Jersey, but my lemonade stand was also a car wash. And I literally went around the neighborhood and employed all these other kids to do really, truly the heavy lifting in terms of washing the cars. And I would bring in passersby, cars that were going by on the street and wave them in to get their car wash. And then I would upsell and cross-sell them lemonade or car wash services, depending on, what the reason for stopping was. So I've always been like that. And I've always been, I guess my French vocabulary is very limited, but another word that I'm familiar with is arbitrageur. And I've always just seen discrepancies in things, whether it's culture, commodities, currencies, coffee, whatever it is. I see these holes and they really get me worked up. So I'm just sort of compelled when I see discrepancies somewhere between what people might want and what they're being sort of served up, and it gets me anxious in a good way, positive way. So just always been this way.
Yeah, and that carried into your career. You had a career before you were an entrepreneur, correct?
Yes. I was a currency trader, an options market maker, a derivatives trader. So yeah, I did all this financial, quote unquote, financial stuff. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I saw the same things. I saw these discrepancies in the case of trading. It was in currencies and then in base metals and in some cases volatility. And what just really was motivated and compelled to sort of close that gap between what I was seeing and what was available. And there was great opportunity there. So yeah, it doesn't matter if it's, again, currencies or commodities. There's still usually some type of gap. And I originally went to school and studied a lot of music. And my favorite quote is from Leonard Cohen, who said, "There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And I'm always looking for these cracks. They're everywhere. And they drive me a little batty.
Okay, so, well, let's get right into it then. Now you founded a coffee company. Where is the crack in coffee? Where's the opportunity there?
I think that for us, there were a few. And truly, coffee is a commodity. And I think one of the biggest cracks that we noticed was a cultural crack. And it isn't that, well, you need a third place for coffee, or, coffee is a nice way to start your day. That's part of culture. All that is fabulous and great. For us, I think that part of the cultural crack was a lot of brands tend to focus on, some mystical magic of the coffee. And by the way, our coffee is amazing. And hopefully we'll get to that and we'll talk about how great our coffee is. That's almost table stakes. The part that we thought was sort of open for some innovation was emotional innovation. And it was understanding that coffee is certainly amazing and there are unique ways of sourcing and blending, but we think that people are more unique. So we're sort of doing a little bit of this cultural jujitsu, if you will, not to inappropriately appropriate martial arts as a non-martial artist myself. But the idea of sort of flipping it a little bit. So it's knowing that the coffee isn't magical, people are magical. And I feel like a lot of brands treat people as targets or as commodities in a way. And we wanted to flip that. So we're playing with this sense of emotional innovation. And then there were other things we just saw in the marketplace, whether it was brands that had been around for a long time. And, a while ago, if something were old, it was, venerated or to be celebrated, or it was traditional or had tradition associated with it. Now we think some of those brands are just kind of old because culturally we've evolved, but in some cases brands have not. And then we also saw a lot of brands that seemed very masculine and aggressive. And, it's like an arms race in coffee. How much caffeine can you pump into yourself? So it seemed like, again, that wasn't the big opportunity. The big opportunity was less about the function. Coffee is kind of the original energy drink when you think about it. But it was more about how does it function in an emotional capacity. And we're really serious about the emotional aspect. And it flows through in everything we do, from how we treat each other as a company, to what the name of the company is, to this partnership we've developed with Downey around mental health.
Yeah. The company name, I don't think I mentioned it. So Happy Products, is that correct?
Yes, Happy. Yeah. The actual technical name of the company is We Are Happy LLC. But yes, we were able to trademark Happy across a whole bunch of aspects of the coffee spectrum.
So looking at coffee and kind of what you said about the category and its issues, wouldn't it the same hold true for other CPG categories that are in the pantry, in general?
Yes, it's what keeps me awake. It's not the caffeine, it's the excitement over exactly what you're describing. Some of my history with prior brands certainly follow a similar kind of path. Hello, in particular, in oral care. The idea in oral care basically was you have to kill, eliminate, and destroy things in your mouth. And if you're not whitening your teeth, you're going to be frightening to somebody. And everything was sort of based on fear and shame. And, if you wouldn't get a kiss goodnight after the date, or the job interview wouldn't go well if your teeth didn't sort of emit bright lights, across the conference room table. So playing the same sort of recording back in our heads, it was like, what can we do there that's emotionally different? And just even naming the company Hello in a category that seemed very technical and clinical, it was kind of missing out on the fact that what a lot of people cared about in terms of their oral health was their smile. And we had this bigger idea, which was about friendliness, not about the clinical aspect. That was table stakes, right? It has to work. But it was, again, like winning on an emotional playing field. And this was also very true with, I have a history with this brand Method. It was the same thing. It wasn't about deeper cleaning. It was about emotional satisfaction and around aesthetics. And aesthetics are I think, often saved for the end. Like, no, we taste with our eyes. And I think the idea that you could be aesthetically pleasing and ethically sound at the same time and put all this together and make something that's functional and a daily use product is, for us, that's what gets us really excited. And that's why we're excited about coffee, because it's a daily use proposition. It's truly a monstrous category. Depending on which set of data you look at, it's a $17 billion US category. Again, depending on how you're sourcing your data. It's a very well trodden and respected category. But again, that emotional newness felt like it was ripe for something.
Yeah. Why do you think CPG companies have not been able to sort of get their arms around the feeling of the emotional attachment to the product that you seem to be going for?
I think part of it is, and I think a lot of brands and companies do a very, very good job. I don't want to sound untoward. And people in the past have said to me, "Oh, you're such a disruptor," or "You're a challenger." And my take on that is, the only people I think that ever call anything that we've been involved with disruptive are the people being disrupted. Like, no human ever says, "Oh, honey, next time you're at the store or next time you're shopping online, can you pick me some of that Happy, magnificent medium ground coffee? Can you pick me up? They're such disruptors. Why? That package really challenged my notion of the norm of the category." Like, No one does that. So I think in a lot of ways, larger companies are large because they've been very successful, and that's terrific. That full stop, that's terrific. The dirty little secret is, I think, most startups and most entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial companies, they want to be a big company. No one starts something and says, I hope we're tiny and I hope we never grow. And I think for a lot of larger companies, the wish is that they could act in a nimble fashion like a smaller startup. So I think bigger companies, to answer really directly, I don't think it's because they can't do this kind of work. I think in some cases, there's legacy that comes with the brand. Quite often, your role might have a short timeline associated with it because you might be onto another assignment, another fabulous opportunity. It's not all doom and gloom. Again, these companies are very successful, and they're successful for a whole lot of, very important reasons. So sometimes your job is to just not screw it up. And I think another thing that sometimes gets in the way, sometimes, is the nomenclature and the behaviors that come with it. So when you have a setting where you're supposed to talk about your target and your target market, you start creating distance between the folks who you're trying to get to fall in love with your product because they become a target. Who wants to be a target? Targets get shot at. So, it's hard to change the vocabulary and ways of behavior inside of a very large organization in a tight time frame. These are all learning organizations. They figure it out pretty fast, but it just takes time.
Okay. I mean, you were in that position for a bit with Colgate after it acquired
Yes.
your Hello company. What did you learn? Anything cool you learned there? You were,
Oh my
and
God, so much,
yeah,
so much. First, a lot of people say to me, "Oh wow, you had an exit. Colgate, acquired your company, you had an exit." And I would always be very quick to correct them. And this wasn't like, "Oh, you've been media trained and you have to say this." No, this was all, I'm just a normal, regular person. So I make things up. And someone said this to me very publicly, like, "Oh, well, you had an exit." And I just blurted out, "No, we didn't have an exit. We had an entrance because we were a tiny little company, right? Hello got started. It was me, three people, and a dog, and we grew, and a lot of really great things happened for sure. The team was incredible, and we were lucky. And Colgate appreciated what we had been able to build, and as the largest oral care company in the world, to say that to us, this little startup, it was incredible. So I used to say we didn't have an exit, we had an entrance, because now the most penetrated brand in the world, I think, and the last Kantar research I'd seen was a few years ago, but it was Colgate was the most penetrated brand in the world, had joined up. Like, we were able to partner with Colgate. It wasn't about an exit, really. It was about now having this much bigger stage. So the thing that I really learned about my time with Colgate is that, I think it was Lou Gerstner who said this, that the elephant can dance. Like, it's a really big company, but the scale is incredible. And the force of will of some of the folks there that I was able and was lucky enough to work with was mind blowing. Because people would ask me all the time, like, why are you there? I'm like, because the people are incredible. It's an incredible company, and a true story. All my stories are true, but one that I'm staring at over my monitor here. I have some bars of soap, and it was, I think, maybe my first week as becoming part of Colgate. And I didn't know that many people in Colgate because we had just become part of the Colgate family. But luckily, the people I did know were very, very senior. And I very innocently used the royal we for the first time. I said, aren't we, meaning Colgate, the largest manufacturer of liquid hand soap and soap in the world? And this was right after COVID became the horrific pandemic that we all have luckily at this point moved to where we are now with. Anyway, I made this very quick comment about hand soap, and doesn't the washing of hands help stop the spread of any disease? And wouldn't that be helpful? And I very innocently said, wouldn't it be great if we just took all of our back half marketing money, we pulled it up front, because again, this was early in 2020, and we just like made as much soap as we could and gave it away. Again, this was very innocent on my part. And next thing you know, I get this email with all these people copied on it. I had to go on LinkedIn because I didn't know who anybody was. And it was the global head of supply chain, the global head of logistics, all these amazing people. And literally, it was a few days, and boom, there was a partnership with the World Health Organization. Certain factories were literally reconfigured to make soap and hand soap, gave away, I think it was I can't remember if it was 16 and a half or 26. It was 26 and a half million bars of soap in like record time. We got to design the packaging so it would work regardless of what your native tongue was. I asked if it would be possible to make 3D printed change parts so we could deboss in each soap a little saying, a little phrase, a little image, just something a little bit sweet and kind. And the only thing that I was sort of nuked on was I wanted to put made and shared with love by Colgate Palmolive, but I think the legal department said, you can't say love, but you could say, not for sale, but you can't say made and shared with love. And the point is, we got to do all that and raise a bunch of capital. And the best part was, I remember it was Noel Wallace, the chairman CEO, said, it's the right thing to do. And we just do it. There was no talk of what's our social media campaign going to be? How are we going to let the world know about it? What's our PR media strategy? Nothing. It literally was, it's the right thing to do. Go do it. So my biggest takeaway was a large enterprise is able to mobilize and provide scale and speed and do incredible things to help large numbers of people. And my hope is, or my takeaway is, how do we take lessons learned from there and apply that to a startup and not trip over ourselves? That's the big thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great story. And Happy has got a celebrity partner, Robert Downey Jr. How did you two get together?
We're very lucky. I'm the luckiest person you just met, basically, full stop. But my luck continued because, as it turns out, the world is really small. And Robert and I had someone in common. And basically, I got this call that was like, hey, are you thinking about a coffee company still? And I was like, yeah, I really am. And I have a bunch of thoughts. And it was, well, you have to meet, I know someone who's really serious about starting a coffee company, and you guys need to connect. So we were connected, and it was very innocent. And the first conversation we had, I don't think either one of us expected it to go for as long as it did. It was over 3.5 hours. And it was pretty amazing. And we went down these really interesting rabbit holes, many of which were about music and culture and brand. And Robert, apart from just being like wildly, wickedly smart and creative like nobody's business, he is a coffee obsessive. Like, when I say obsessive, I mean you could serve him a bunch of different coffees and he could tell you that this bean came from a different altitude, much higher altitude than that one. Like, how do you know this? He's like a coffee savant. So he's a coffee obsessive. I'm a brand and design obsessive and retail obsessive. And I'm harping too much on the word obsessive. Let's just say super aficionado. And we combine forces. And I'll never forget when I was talking with Robert about happy as a word and as a potential mark. And he said, and it was really this prescient moment. I still sort of get chills. He said, well, that's really great. I get it, but not everybody's happy. So, like, what are we going to do about that? And we got into this really deep dive on happy and happiness. And I don't want to speak for him, because it's not my place. But I spent a fair amount of time also with Robert and his bride Susan. And my bride, my wife, is a PhD in clinical psychology. So we started talking a lot about happy and happiness. And I remember asking my wife, who do you know as a PhD in clinical psychology that's really doing breakthrough important work at scale? Because if that's, again, another big takeaway from my Colgate time, scale is so important because so many people want to do great things to be helpful. But if you can't do, like, and helping one person clearly is a great thing. If you can help one person, that's terrific. But if there's a way to help more people, then it's that much better. And hopefully, the compounding interest of more people getting more help is going to, again, just provide different dividends in terms of scale and import. So anyway, we kept talking about this, and my bride says, oh, NAMI. I said, what's NAMI? It's, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So we started to dig in a little bit to learn as much as we could about NAMI. And it's just the most incredible organization. They developed 988, which is the first nationwide hotline for mental health. It's the 911 for mental health, among other things. It's really, truly a grassroots organization. There, if anyone's listening and wondering, 988 is live and active, and there is, I can hold hand on heart and tell you there's a local chapter wherever you are. of NAMI people, and they're just the most incredible folks. And the help they provide is very, very real. And when we started spending more time with NAMI, we realized, we said, well, like, how could we be helpful to you? What you do is so helpful to so many people. Like, what are any issues that you might know of? Because it can't just be like, we make good coffee. Wouldn't that be good? You know, you'll start your day with some fabulous coffee. Nope, that's not what's bugging most people that get in touch with NAMI. The number one thing they were telling us they heard is people saying, if only I'd known about NAMI sooner. So as folks that love brand and marketing and people, and hopefully problem solving, that sounded to us like an awareness issue. So we said, well, what if we put information about NAMI on all of our packaging, but not in a heavy-handed way? You know, we're not trying to, be invasive about something that's so personal and so private for so many. We're trying to do our best to help destigmatize it, right? So it's a very delicate balance. You don't want to be heavy-handed because that's obtrusive, but we wanted to make sure people could get in touch with NAMI. So on every package, we said we're going to put a scannable QR code and toll-free numbers and very light touch information on NAMI, and then you can dig in deeper and come to our website if you want, or come to the NAMI website right from your phone and learn a lot more. And then Robert and I kept talking, and we want to do something different around the relationship between entrepreneurship and philanthropy. And as much as we wanted to destigmatize or help play a role in destigmatizing mental health and its importance, and the fact that there are great resources available, we wanted to do something that wasn't going to feel performative. And we've seen lots of brands that, again, all well-intentioned. I just want to make sure I don't come across as sounding negative, because we're really not negative at all. And we're really appreciative of what other brands do across the board, because it's very hard to run or start or build any kind of brand or any kind of business. So again, don't want to sound negative, but we wanted to make sure that it wasn't like, oh, well, this month it's, National Mental Health Month, and next month it's National, Bring Your Dog to Work Month. Or there's a lot of ways to do good. Again, not trying to belittle anyone's efforts. We want to do something that was going to be evergreen and be a little bit weightier and involve NAMI in a way where it wasn't some perfunctory thing where we just are slapping a logo on product. So we had this idea to actually give NAMI a piece of the company. And we baked that into everything from the get-go. So it wasn't reactionary. It wasn't, to use this word again, performative. It wasn't just sort of the moment. It was something that was going to go the distance, and where we thought we could hopefully bring some scale and awareness to a problem that is really affecting so many people. And a problem is really a horrible pejorative sounding word, but a set of challenges, and knowing that there's hope and help available that we could bring to the party, that was really important to us. So that's why we wanted to do it a little bit differently and in a way that was meaningful to us, sure, as entrepreneurs and founders, but hopefully to NAMI, and hopefully more importantly, and most importantly, to the people out there who need it. 1 in 5 in this country have some form of a mental health challenge. Suicide is at an all-time high, suicide rates. The suicide rate in the US is unfortunately extremely high in comparison to a lot of other developed nations combined. Ours is higher. Suicide is the number 2 killer of teens in America. Handguns, number 1, and quite often number 1 and number 2 go together. And I would go so far as to say that if mental health were an airborne contagion, and we could talk about social media and argue to some degree that it may be in some ways an airborne contagion, or at least a Wi-Fi enabled contagion, this would be pandemic level stuff. So anything we could do to, again, help destigmatize, demystify, aid and abet in bringing some hope and some help to people is a huge win. So that's why we're doing it. And by the way, because I left this out, the coffee is friggin' amazing. Like, we would have launched 9 months earlier, but Robert to say he was in on the development of the coffee is an understatement. He's like, if it's not friggin' amazing, like, it has to be better. Like, if you don't make stuff that's better, then it's a marketing exercise, or it's like a project. We weren't in this to have an arts and crafts show. We wanted to really make something that was going to be as enduring as it is hopefully endearing. And you can only do that if you have something that's like durable and consistent and really, really good. So I can't stress enough, the products are awesome. Like, I hope everybody tries them because we put a lot into making sure that they work.
That's great. That's great. With that, Craig, we're about out of time, so I'm going to have to let you go here. But it's been really fun talking to you, and best of luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That was Craig Dubitsky, co-founder of Happy Coffee, and I'm John Springer, senior reporter at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and remind you that you can subscribe to The Marketer's Brief wherever you get your podcasts. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.